All right, coming up next, we're going to dive into things with high school football, how our teams in our area stack up among the nation's best. Jeff Fisher, High School Football America, coming up next on Sports Radio 99 The Game at 99thegame.com. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I want to remind you that the college football game time is coming up from 9 until 12:30 later on this morning. Chris Goforth, Randy McMichael, and John Chuckery will go all over college football. That's coming up here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. But now we're going to dive into the world of high school and the guy who keeps an eye on all of it. When I say all of it, I mean all of it, all over the country. He keeps up with what's going on with high school football. Jeff Fisher from High School Football America joins us on the waitforit.com hotline. Jeff, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sam. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Recovering from last night, but what a game! I mean, they were throwing heavyweight punches out there last night. It was a great game between Grayson and Colquitt County. Thoughts about what you saw when you glimpsed that game last night?
Well, first off, you guys did an awesome job, and boy, I don't know how you do this. I was up watching IMG in Modern Day until 2:00. But back to your question, which is, I was impressed by the way Grayson came out. Quite honestly, in our rankings, we had Colquitt at number 13 and Grayson at 30, which means the Packers were the favorite coming in, and I thought they took it to them. And I think your broadcast team brought it out. I thought they kind of took their foot off the gas there. And then, once they got that lead going up 14-3, and then at that point, I think they let the Packers come back in, some turnovers and all that. But, I like Colquitt. They have not backed away from anybody. And I think that number 13 ranking is going to improve this week on the national side.
Was wondering what you thought about them as they stack up. We always like to compare our football here in this state compared to some others. And we saw some teams from our area go up in rankings after the season started. We saw Milton take a shot up after that big win early on in the season. But Colquitt is there. We saw Rome on GPB last week, and we saw them. They're very impressive, and they had no problem with their win. They had Cass last night. But thoughts about where our Georgia teams are stacking up so far this season?
Yeah, and we talked about this during the preseason when you had me on the show. Georgia very strong going into the season. So for the fans out there that don't know what High School Football America does with our rankings, it's not an opinion poll. It's an algorithm that we created back in 2012 and unveiled in 2013. So there's 15 things that go into that. And for the first time since 2013, heading into the season, Georgia was the third strongest state. It went Texas, then Florida, then Georgia. So Georgia actually hopped over California at the beginning of the year. And because I'm crazy and because it was late and I knew I was up at, early this morning, I said, well, let me do this for Sam. I'm going to try and run some numbers here and look at strength of state. And it looks like, now I can't, this isn't official, but I will do the story tomorrow once I get all the games in. It looks like Georgia may have be the second strongest state in the nation after this weekend. While they don't have a lot, like Florida has more teams in the top 25, but overall strength of state, Georgia is right up there, and Colquitt is probably the one team that still has a shot at the mythical national championship because of their strength of schedule in our algorithm. While Rome can run the table, win another state championship, and I'm impressed by them, their strength of schedule really, they would have to have like a lot of teams who's a couple of games in front of them to get up there. But the Packers have a shot, but that 7-8 bracket, who's excited to watch that in the postseason?
Spending some time with Jeff Fisher. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Fisher Media and at High School HSFB America. HBFB, all uppercase, and America lowercase. They're on Twitter to keep up with his information each and every week as he updates things in the world of high school football. You mentioned the team from Colquitt once again, and going back to them, Rush Probst and what he does with this team. Physically, you looked at the game last night, and Grayson was just physically bigger team. They're just a physically bigger team. They're more decorated, obviously, with the rankings and the player rankings and the recruiting and all of the offers they have size-wise. But it seems like they found a way to neutralize that size as it went on. First of all, on the defensive side they did, and then on the offensive side they found a way to make some holes and get some runs, sustain some drives, keep their offense off the field and out of a rhythm. It's the biggest thing I think I got from Christian Honeycutt, the Grayson coach, afterwards. Offense was just off stride throughout the second half of that ball game.
Yeah, and it still is the beauty of high school football, isn't it? I mean, recruiting rankings aside and all that, it still comes down to going out there on the game and on the field during the game. And I like Rush Probst. I got to know him very well when the Packers were our national champs in 2015. I certainly know why people don't like him. We can go back to the Hoover days and all that. But at the end of the day, as a football coach, you can't argue with the success, right? I think you guys had the stat before the game last night that he now has more wins with the Packers than he did with the Bucs. But yeah, physicality is what I noticed when I saw him in the season opener at the Corky Kell. They made some adjustments, and that is the key in every football at every level. But I think they made some adjustments, and I saw Bergen Catholic take it to Grayson, and it seems as though, and I just kind of 2 games of seeing Grayson in one in person and one on television last night. It seems as though they have trouble with physical teams. Bergen Catholic kind of took it to him, smacked him on the chin a couple of times, and I think Colquitt did that last night.
Yep, they did. Indeed. Spending some time with Jeff Fisher on the waitforit.com hotline from High School Football America, a team we usually talk about in this framework and in this way in the state is Buford. They have a second loss, and something we rarely see. We saw them play against another Gwinnett County public school that has a strong football program. They usually avoid each other, and this game really stood out when the schedule made. Archer went over and beat them 48-24. Talks about what that says about Archer and maybe about the Buford team this season.
Yeah, and I got to see the Wolves against Deerfield Beach out of Florida. That was the second game when Grayson played Bergen Catholic, and that was my first time of seeing the Wolves. I was impressed by their size, not only physically but also numbers on there. But I don't let Archer's number 93 ranking last week fool you. They're going to move up. They lost to Milton. That was a first season opener and all that. It's going to shake out, but that's my first time of seeing Buford. I have not seen Archer other than on television in the Corky Kell Classic, but from what everybody tells me and what our numbers tell us, this is a team that's in the hunt for a state championship again. And like I said earlier, that 7A bracket is good. I think Colquitt is definitely kind of head and shoulders up there. Grayson is behind. I like Walton. I've liked him since I saw him beat Mill Creek in the opener,
yeah.
and then they're continuing the roll. And a couple of weeks ago when they were on ESPN, when they came and hung in there tough and then beat North Gwinnett. I mean, come on, let's not discount the Raiders, who started at 105 and are already up to 48 and probably going to climb a little bit this week when we release tomorrow.
Fantastic, man. So this is released tomorrow. Tell people what they can expect to see and where they got to go to get it.
Yeah, it's highschoolfootballamerica.com. We do a top 100, and then this week, halfway through the season, we always do an on the bubble. So that's 101 through 125. And right now, again, Georgia's got 12 teams in there. The losses last night by Roswell and Milton will affect them. They may have to bump out there, but overall, it was a relatively calm night last night, as we didn't have a whole lot of upsets. And like I said, I was watching the big one that everybody was interested in, which was out on the West Coast. Mater Dei #1 came back in the last minute to beat IMG Academy out of Florida 28-24. So they'll remain #1. I'll brag about that. I'm the only ranking service that had the Monarchs #1. So all the other ranking services, I think you'll see a lot of shifting coming up.
All right. Well, Jeff, thanks so much for spending some time with us, bringing some knowledge about the rankings and your system and everything this morning. And we got to get back with you again later on this season.
Sounds good. I appreciate you, Sam. Have a great rest of the day.
Oh, you too. Now, that is Jeff Fisher from High School Football America. I'm telling you how our team stack up. And we know our team stack up best from the rest of the state. Folks around the country may not know, but we know the caliber game we play here in Georgia. We're going to get into more of that on the other side of the hour and our local college football games and more coming up when we get to the next hour on a game day Saturday morning, Hill Sports Radio 92.9 The Game and 92.9thegame.com.